Coming up on NBA Now by Chat Sports, I'm your host, Chase Sr. Another news and rumors mailbag where I take questions and answer them from all of our loyal subscribers. That's another incentive as to why you should subscribe to us here at Chat Sports. Year-round coverage on the NBA, NFL, and college football. First question kicking off this mailbag coming in from Chua Lore. Should the Warriors check in on Collin Sexton? No, I don't think so. You have a really good guard coming in off the bench in Jordan Poole. And Collin Sexton could make a lot of money in the future, which could rival what Jordan Poole makes. If you want to pay one, you have to choose one. And I'd rather go Jordan Poole over Collin Sexton. I like to retain my own players if I'm running an NBA front office. Of course, it does come down to talent level, but is there a big gap between Jordan Poole and Collin Sexton? I'm really not sure. I like the player who's been in-house. I like the player who the Warriors have developed, and I think he's only going to continue to get better. I'm keeping Jordan Poole, not going after Collin Sexton. D. Wilkes, who do you think the Celtics should go after besides Kevin Durant? I think that they've done a great job this offseason. I think that Brad Stevens deserves a lot of credit. To get Malcolm Brogdon for basically nothing, that's a steal. If he's able to stay healthy, he's a very good point guard. By making that deal for Danilo Gallinari after he was bought out by San Antonio, it's a steal. $6.5 million per year for a very, very good three-point shooter. Outside of that, this roster seems to be in good shape. You could probably make the argument that they could use a backup center. The ones available right now, DeMarcus Cousins, LaMarcus Aldridge, Hassan Whiteside, those are the top centers on the market. Those are players who I would probably bypass if I'm Boston, but they could come at a position of need. Trey VJ, what do you think is going to happen with the Lakers remaining this offseason? I think they're just waiting for a potential Kyrie Irving trade. That's really the big domino to fall for LA. And if they don't trade for Kyrie Irving, are their trade conversations going to be dead? Now, there have been some rumblings about them being interested in Buddy Hield as well as Miles Turner, but the Indiana Pacers would have to take on that Russell Westbrook contract. And why would it make sense for Indiana, a rebuilding team, to bring on Russ outside of just the financial commitment of being a salary dump-off destination? Maybe that's why it does make sense, but if I'm Indiana, I want to try to stockpile young talent. I don't need to take on Russell Westbrook. And also for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, I want back a little bit more. Predict the NBA Finals matchup for me in the comment section. Who do you think is going to be competing for the Larry O.B. next year? The level of talent at the NBA level, my gosh, it's strong right now. Peter Gazer, do you think there's more to this trade? Maybe Jaylen Brown privately asked for a trade or didn't commit verbally long-term. Thanks for answering my question, Dad. I got you, son. Appreciate you for watching the show, man. And I'm happy to answer everybody's questions and as many questions as possible. So, Peter, as far as this Jaylen Brown, him reportedly wanting out of Boston, that came from WEEI. It is a flagship radio show in Boston. I'm not sure if they're looking for clicks. I'm not sure if there's stock behind that report. If you're Jaylen Brown, do you think that you can be a number one on a different team that can make it to the championship? Maybe. And if that's the case, maybe he wants to try to be that guy. And let's be real, whether it's a professional athlete, somebody like me in the broadcasting space, or you, depending on your occupation. Me personally, I'm always trying to challenge myself. I'm a competitor, right? I want to be the best that I can be. I want to fulfill my potential, and I want to see what I can become. For Jaylen Brown, he probably wants to see if he can be that number one guy at one point. And if the trade request comes from that, then maybe there is that. Now, there hasn't been a trade request, just some reports about Jaylen Brown, quote-unquote, wanting out. Now, I think he's a good fit alongside Jason Tatum. If I'm Boston, I would think long and hard about including him in a deal for Kevin Durant, because it helps me compete for a championship over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But for Brown, developmental piece who has turned into a stud on both ends of the floor, high-level defensive player who continues to get better offensively, that's all credit to the work that he's put in. I have so much respect for Jaylen Brown. Evan Hinders, Lakers, trade Westbrook and 2 firsts for Mike Conley. You don't want to do that. If you're going to do that, and according to reports, the Pacers stopped trade conversations with the Lakers because the Lakers weren't willing to include that second first-round pick. If you're the Lakers, You don't make that trade for Mike Conley. You make that trade, in my opinion, for Buddy Hield as well as Miles Turner. That's what, to me, moves the needle, not an aging and expensive point guard whose game has gone downhill the last couple of years. So, Evan, I kind of see where you're coming from. If it was Mike Conley several years ago, maybe. Not the player who he is on the price tag that he's on over the next couple of years. Before we continue on our mailbag, taking all these questions from our loyal subscribers, you might be subscribed, but are your notifications on? If they're not, make sure you turn them on. Therefore, anytime we go live, anytime we publish a video, you will be notified and receive that push notification. How do you do it? You follow the steps right here to my right. You go to the settings portion on your app, on your phone, scroll down, tap YouTube, tap notifications, and then turn on allow notifications. Therefore, again, once we do anything here at Chat Sports, you will stay in the know. Garnopolis Gaming. The Celtics have filled out their roster perfectly with the acquisitions of Brogdon and Gallinari. Why would they take a chance on KD? Is this just an attempt to disgruntle JB by the Nets? No, I don't think so. It's an attempt for Boston to compete for a championship. They sniffed the title last year, and they came up just a little bit short. So they're looking at a two-way combo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and if they don't think that's enough to win an NBA championship, and they think that KD moves the needle and gets them over the hump, then maybe you take that risk, and maybe you take that chance. I have respect for organizations who are aggressive, who swing for the fences, who, take a chance, and they're bold about their championship pursuit. We saw it with the Los Angeles Rams. We've seen it countless times at the NBA level. That's really, I think, the thinking process and the thought process for Boston here. Sam, can Ben Simmons be a part of a Kevin Durant trade? He can, but you'd probably have to take back 2 max contracts because Simmons is on a max contract, so too is KD. So a lot of money at play. If you give up that money, you got to take back that money, unless it's a 3-team deal. Then it changes a little bit. Tom DeLay beats. Is Chet Holmgren the new Chris Dudley? That's disrespectful. That's disrespectful. Chet Holmgren, I think, is going to be a pretty solid player. Now, his body type scares me. There's no doubt about that. I like what he was able to do throughout the NBA Summer League. He impressed me. How does he hold up throughout the rigors of an 82-game regular season schedule? I think the jury is out there. And if he's banging bodies down low, is he going to be able to hold up? Those are the problems and the concerns that I have. But Chet Holmgren, at the very least, will be a 7-footer with a 3-ball, a handle, who has these defensive instincts that allows him to block a lot of shots. At the very least, that's what he'll be at the NBA level. Because Draymond Green said that he thinks the Warriors in 2017 would have beaten the Chicago Bulls or the Utah Jazz, who do you think would win based on what Draymond said? Do you think it's the Warriors, type GSW? If you think it's Michael Jordan and the Bulls, type CHI, or the Utah Jazz, UTA. Rylan Hill, where do you rank the Mavs outside of your top 10 starting fives? They're probably on the cusp, and if you're watching this mailbag after our live show, check out the channel for my top 10 starting lineups in the NBA going up to this year. I'd put them, like the Chicago Bulls are right there, the Miami Heat are right there, and then maybe the Mavericks. So let's just say 13 behind the Bulls and the Heat. I think that's a proper range because you lose Jalen Brunson and still up to this point, haven't really replaced him. DC Marley, if you swap Tatum for KD on that Celtics team that was in the finals, the Celtics would more than likely be NBA champs now. And maybe the Celtics believe that, going back to that previous question. Maybe the Celtics think that if they had KD on this team and you swap them out, they would win the championship. Now, if you swap Tatum for KD, that's a little bit different. And I think that'd be a hard pill to swallow for the organization as well as Bostonians out there. If you swap Jaylen Brown with KD, I still think you win the NBA championship. Tatum, though, look, I think he just ran out of steam. I understand. Like, he didn't impress a lot of people throughout the NBA Finals. He struggled. There's no question about that. He came up short in some really big moments. But up until the NBA Finals, I don't think the Celtics get to where they get to without Tatum going off on that road game against Milwaukee and him doing what he did throughout that playoff run. Don't panic. Next up, if you were the Celtics, would you trade Smart to get a better bench? Where does Smart fit after the Brogdon trade? I like Marcus Smart. He's so critical to the Celtics' identity. He proved last year that he could play multiple positions, and a lot of people had questions about that. He went into the year as the prototypical point guard without ever really having owned that role, and he owned it. He succeeded. Not only did he win Defensive Player of the Year, which is very rare for a guard, but he handled those point guard duties really, really well. I wouldn't trade him away. Defensively, he's a bulldog. Offensively, you have to live with some of the ill-advised shots, but he's so critical to what the Celtics want to be as a basketball culture. I don't think I'd trade him away. Now, is he going to start, and is Brogdon going to come in off the bench? Does Smart come in off the bench? Does Brogdon start? Right now, I'd probably lean Marcus Smart. What you'd have to do if you wanted to start both, Smart at 2 and Brogdon at the 1, you'd have to bench one of Al Horford or Robert Williams. Sam, dark horse team to land Kevin Durant. Can we say the Boston Celtics? Can we say the New Orleans Pelicans, the Oklahoma City Thunder? Outside of that, I don't think there are a lot of teams who have what it takes to bring in KD. I mean, some people were saying the Washington Wizards, but they don't have the draft assets or the player assets to give up for Durant. The Portland Trail Blazers, I think the same can be said. They just lack what it takes to bring in KD. What would you give up? Would you give up Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant? Let me know in the comment section. Y for yes, N for no. As always, thanks so much for tuning in to everything that we do here at Chat Sports and for being a part of our mailbags. If you want to be a part of them in the future, whether it's an NBA mailbag, NFL mailbag, make sure you subscribe. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv.